Hello, it's Regina. Welcome back to my haunted library. Today I'm going to be talking about Gothic Romance, and I have quite a few of these books. They have a very similar look to them, and I'm going to talk about them a little and share with you all the books that I have, because I had made a comment in a few videos ago about going over my shelves and how boring that would be, and then a couple people commented like, no, it'd be kind of cool to see some of your books. So I thought, okay, well, I'll start with this section because I do kind of have things organized according to like genre. So what is Gothic Romance? Well, it was a very popular kind of pulp genre back in the 70s. The TV show Dark Shadows is a really good example of this style, because although it became more about like vampires and ghosts and the occult and witches and stuff like that, it started out with Victoria Winters in your typical Gothic romance kind of setup before we ever got to Barnabas Collins. So I thought as a good guide of this genre, I would refer to a master of genre writer, and that's Dean Koontz. And this book I have called Writing Popular Fiction. This was written in the 70s, as you can tell from his author photo on the back. And he has a chapter about, well, he has chapters about each of the different popular genres of the time. And this is a guidebook for writers to how to, how to write science fiction, how to write westerns, how to write suspense, how to write Gothic romance, even how to write erotica. And this is really good. This is a very good book. There's a lot of practical advice in here. And so this is the basic plot skeleton for the Gothic novel. A young heroine, alone in the world and often an orphan, goes to an old and isolated house to take a new job as a secretary, governess, nurse, or traveling companion to a motherless child or older woman in a family of some financial means. Everyone in the house is a stranger to her. At the house, the heroine meets a cast of suspicious characters, servants, the master or lady of the house, usually one or two sons of the lady, neighbors, and soon finds herself plunged into some mystery, either of supernatural or more mundane origins. Gothic novels are full of rainstorms, snow, thunder, lightning, leaden skies, cold drafts, and other gloomy omens which set the mood and act as generators of suspense as much as do the few violent incidents in the course of the story. So it's not really horror. It's more suspense. He writes more about the taboos. So these are the things you can't have. Just like in romance, you always want to have a happy ending. That's one of the rules of a romance genre, or a happy for now, or a happy ever after kind of ending. And if you don't give the reader that, if you do a tragic ending, or if they break up, you're not going to satisfy your reader, and they may even rebel and write horrible reviews on Goodreads. The taboos in the Gothic novel are few but inflexible. Stories that do not employ the Gothic plot formula are taboo. You must have a heroine who is alone in the world, and she must suffer through some nightmarish ordeal in a strange place, finding terror and romance along the way, triumphing in the end. Stories that do not center on the old gloomy house or some variation of the same are taboo. Stories that do not feature the traditional Gothic heroine are taboo. And a heroine who does not mature through the course of the novel is taboo. And stories that lack happy endings are taboo. And also, stories containing explicit or even implied sexual contact are especially taboo. A Gothic must contain no bedroom scenes, no petting. They don't even use that term anymore, the petting, and not even any necking. When was the last time you heard someone use the term petting or necking? I think we need to bring back necking. What do you think? When you describe your heroine, you must always indicate that she is pretty, but you must never discuss her figure or her sexuality. I would place the Gothic romance novel as beginning with Jane Eyre, because that is about a young, innocent woman who goes to work as a governess in this gloomy house, and for a rich widower. Well, he's not exactly a widower, as we learn in the story. So that is the basic formula for a Gothic novel. And just what Dean Koontz wrote, all of these books pretty much follow that same formula. But that doesn't mean that they're not extremely enjoyable if you enjoy that formula. This is kind of my pulp go-to type of book. I don't like to read what would be considered like modern romances, or I never got into Harlequin romances. I think because I liked horror and romance, I gravitated toward the Gothic romance. And it was also because when I was a kid, my Aunt Rita, who was like a second mom to me, she would have stacks of these Gothic romance books in her house. So whenever I would visit, I would read them. So I had an emotional connection to these books because I loved her and we would read the books together and share them. So when I pick up one, I have this like warm, fuzzy feeling of like a good childhood memory. And sometimes it's kind of like almost like Nancy Drew's. Sometimes I'm craving something innocent. All of these books are about the same length. They're very short, and it's nice because you can read them in an afternoon. So pour yourself a little sherry. Let's go into the drawing room and take a look at all of these Gothic romance books. This is called Pantaleon by Vanessa Blake, a tale of forbidden romance and murderous jealousy. This is a Magnum Gothic. I like this one. It's called The Easy Eye, which at my age I appreciate. The Haunted by Alice Brennan. Jennifer Stone had to learn her sister-in-law's unutterable secret, but in the answer lay a threat to her life. I did read this one last summer. So this one is House of Doom, House of Desire by Sharon Wagner. This is your typical cover. The woman running away from the castle, the house in the background, The Beckoning. Haven't read that one. This one's a little beat up. Bright Sun, Bright Moon. These books are very hard to find in the wild. I find them on eBay and Abe Books, and they're not that cheap. So I would love to just like come across a bookstore that just has a stack of these, because I always find old Harlequin romances, which I don't read. This is The Brooding House, another Alice Brennan. I did read this one. 1965. I do like the ones from the 60s. I like the illustrations are really nice. Shadowland by Elaine Evans, another Easy Eye. Winter Evil by Sharon Wagner. I have quite a few Sharon Wagners. I did read this one. Okay, now this is interesting. This is the first Dark Shadows by Marilyn Ross. And you can see it does the formulaic illustration of the girl running away from the house. This is the beginning of Dark Shadows, which is Gothic romance. It's not Barnabas Collins the vampire. It's Victoria Winters, the governess, going to Collingswood to be David's governess. She goes, they call it the Collins house. So you see how this developed from a Gothic romance book to more of a, they exploited all the different vampire series. In fact, when I was reading the vampire lore and legend, I was like, oh God, the Dark Shadows just pulled all of this right from all of the source material. It's pretty amazing. A little bit of a different take. This is called The Bat, a novel of romance and suspense by Mary Roberts Reinhardt. This is a little bit of a different take on that cover. Another Alice Brennan, The Devil's Dreamer. It was like a mad sister in the attic type of thing. Not that I know anything about that. This is interesting. This is kind of mixing a nurse romance with Gothic romance, because nurse romance is also like medical romance is another like subgenre of romance, because a lot of young women worked as nurses and they could read these books and have a little bit on their break. The Sand Rose. This is an exotic romance suspense. So this is a little bit of a different take on it. This one's a little bit beat up. I hate when they put the stickers on the books. Don't ever put stickers on your books. This is a little bit of a different kind of illustration and very pretty. I found this one on eBay and I thought it was funny. I haven't read it. Pretty Enough to Kill, a beauty contest with a deadly choice. This feels like a different kind of take on the Gothic formula. Cold Chill of Koptos. Again, running away from the haunted house. Island of Bitter Memories by Dorothy Daniels. Again, the same thing. Here's one I just got recently on eBay. The Winter Keeper, pretty girl running through the woods. Another one I got on eBay recently. The Night Hunters. This one I'm reading now, and I'm halfway through, and I love this book. Although I have to wonder, like, did these writers have a certain, in their contracts, they had a certain kind of word count that they had to complete? Like, the books aren't very long, so maybe it's like a 40,000 word count. because some of this is so padded with descriptions of like what the coachman's outfit was, from his boots, you know, to the tassels on his pantaloons to the feathers in his hat. I'm like, it's just like a very minor character. Why is there a whole page and a half on his outfit? But I think that might be why. But this one is actually really good. The Black Swan by Rachel Cosgrove Pays. Shadow of the House. This one's a little more of a Victorian take. Sometimes they're set in like the modern world, and by modern I mean, you know, 1965 or 1970. Here's another one with a photograph on the cover. Mansion of Smiling Masks. Listen for the Whisper by Phyllis A. Whitney. This one I loved when I was a kid, one of my favorites, and this is actually a very good book. It won the Newbery Award. The Witch of Blackbird Pond by Elizabeth George Spear. This is more of a young adult book. I think I read this when I was like in 3rd or 4th grade. Oh look, it was a library book. Does anyone remember the little card you filled out and got stamped with the date? Showing my age here, guys, but I kind of miss the old library cards, and because you could see the date. Now they give you a receipt and you lose it. Here, it's in the book, and you're like, okay, my book's due. I also miss the old card catalog. The House on the Hill by Jane Whitehead. Climb the Dark Mountain by Julie Wellesley. I read this and it was so bad. I don't even remember the plot. I just remember thinking how stupid it was. You know, sometimes you get good ones and sometimes you get ones that are just kind of thrown together. This is a nice cover. A Walk in the Wood by Anna Gilbert. This is very modern. The Turret Room by Charlotte Armstrong. I posted this on Instagram, and Will Erickson, said something about she looked like she had to go pee or something. I thought that was really funny. I love when he comments on my Instagram post. I get all giddy because, I mean, he's like a celebrity in my eyes. Okay, and The Loom of Terror by Paula Minton. This has a pretty cool mod-looking cover too, as does this one. This has a really great typeface. The Dornstein Icon. This came out in 1973. So you get into more like the 70s looking typeface and this type of thing. And then this one is also kind of like hippy dippy. The Death Beads. I had that coat when I was a kid.
Hey Lily, what you doing?
So I hope you enjoyed checking out my Gothic Romance books. Please let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these, or if you read Gothic Romance, or if you have like another type of pulp genre books like Westerns or those old science fiction books that you read. I would love to hear about it. So yeah, let me know. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Thanks for stopping by my haunted library, and I'll see you soon. Bye.